accurate data, the effectiveness of such tools may be jeopardized. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to activate the Community Map of Canada to ensure your applications contain accurate Canadian content. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alia Khatib, and I'm the Community Maps Advocate. I've helped guide many of our over 280 contributors on using the Community Map of Canada base maps, something that you too can benefit from. Joining me today is my colleague, John Osborne, Solutions Architect, who will give you some under the hood tips on how to access, restyle, and develop using the Community Map of Canada. Hey, John.
Hi, Alia. Thank you for asking me to join you today. I feel we've put together a lot of interesting topics to discuss, so why don't we get started? Now, before we do, I want to remind everyone that this session is recorded, and Alia and I would love to hear how we do. So please take some time after our presentation and fill out the survey. Not only does this help us improve this webinar, but it helps us plan future webinar topics. We also want to see your questions, so at any time feel free to use the Q&A panel to ask your questions. If you're unable to see the Q&A panel, just click the three dots at the bottom there and open up the control panel to ask your questions. We plan to spend time at the end of this session to answer as many questions as we can. Now, over the next 50 minutes, Ali and I want to discuss what the Community Map of Canada program is, how you benefit not only as a contributor, but as an individual or organization that uses it. And we've also prepared a few how-tos that look at configuring your organization to use the available base map styles in your own maps. Now, along the way, we'll look at creating your own custom styles and using the community map in custom JavaScript applications. So, Alia, why don't we get started by looking at the Community Map of Canada program and its benefits?
Sure, John. At a glance, I'll point out six key aspects about the Community Map of Canada program and its base maps. It's a national program facilitated by Esri Canada to create a standard base map of the country. This standardization eliminates misunderstanding of map features across jurisdictions. Data on the base map is contributed directly from authoritative sources, the data custodians, if you will. Any updates to that data is captured daily, and a new version of the map is published twice a week. An important aspect to remember about the base maps is that they're bilingual and also include Indigenous place names. Place names on the map come from the Canadian Geographical Names Database. This is a database recognized by the Geographical Names Board of Canada, which is the authority figure on geographical names. There are 5 standard styles: topo, streets night, light gray, and dark gray, as well as special theme style of the month. The best feature about another feature about the Community Map of Canada, it's completely complementary. Whether you're a user looking to explore the map or a contributor looking to share your data. So what's in it for you as a user? What do you benefit? What are some of the benefits that you will gain using this great resource? First thing of all, the data comes from authoritative sources that oversee the daily transactional changes. You know where it's coming from. Additionally, with the frequency of the updates, you don't have to worry about data currency. The vector style maps are great because they're made of a single tile set, allowing you as a user to get as creative as your imagination will take you with customization and restyling. This is something we'll explore with John soon. The base maps of Canada are readily available in your ArcGIS system, whether you are a ArcGIS Pro user or an enterprise user, or prefer to use ArcGIS online. They're readily available in the system, so therefore they're there for you to use at any time saves you a lot of time. John, now we're coming to the fun part of the webinar. And before I get into that, I do have a question for you. You've been in the industry for over 25 years now. What are some of the innovations that you've seen in web-based mapping over time?
Yeah, absolutely. When I started working with web applications, I wore many hats. I handled the app development, prepared the operational data, and designed the supporting base map. And I found that creating that base map was the most time-consuming part of the process. There was also a limit to how aesthetic you could make it. But when raster-based tile caches were introduced, the quality of that map improved, but the caching process still took a little bit of time and disk space. So while the map looked a lot better, my app looked a lot better, it still affected the timeliness of the features and in the cache, and that ability to reuse it for applications it wasn't designed for became a bit of a problem as well. So when vector tile caches came about, they really changed all of that. Not only can I generate that cache quickly, the file size is more compact and shareable, but I can also change that original style without rebuilding the cache, which is really great for all of the applications I want to use it in.
John, I've heard some of our users sometimes say that they don't see the Community Map of Canada base maps within their gallery. What's the best way for them to access these maps, and how can someone ensure that the base maps are visible in their gallery at all times?
Sure, let's take a look. First, I want to start by where you can go just to look at and explore the base maps before we get too deep into setting up and making sure my organization's set up, because I want to share this resource with you. At exchange.maps.arcgis.com, this is the Community Map of Canada's ArcGIS online organization, and you don't have to have a login to get here. There's some free content here that you can see and take a look at before you start stepping into the Community Map of Canada. And in here, we discuss the program. We have some really nice little applications that give you an idea as to the timeliness of the data, as well as some examples as to how the data could be organized to fit into the Community Map of Canada. And of course, this is really what we're here for, which is the Community Map of Canada base map styles. And there are 5 styles here that we're going to look at in a little bit. The other thing I want to make note of here is this PDF file, which lists many of the sources that are also available to anyone to access some of this data, because a lot of this comes from open data sites. Not all of it, but all of it should come from the communities. A lot of it comes from the community's open data sites. And the last thing I want to highlight is that we have this Community Map of Canada Style of the Month gallery, which is another great resource for you to use to get started in your own customization of the underlying maps. For you to get started doing your own customization of the underlying topographic maps. And one of the things I want to highlight here is this April 2021 one. I'm going to do a little demonstration later on to show you just some of the steps we took to set this up. But now let's really take a look at whether or not your organization is set up to see these maps by default within your base map gallery. So I'm going to step into my own organization here, and the first thing I want to look at is I just want to take a quick look at my standard map to see what my base map gallery looks like. So if I select the base map object and I take a look at this list here, what I'm seeing is the list of base maps that are sort of the ones ArcGIS Online provides by default for everyone. And these are pretty much anywhere in the world you'd get this list of base maps. What I want to see here is the Community Map of Canada base maps, as well as any other ones I might use, but I really want to get those Community Map of Canada base maps into this list. So to do that, I'm just going to go into my organization settings here. I'm going to select Organization, and I'm going to select Settings. And there are 2 key parameters that I need to check. The first is in the General Settings, and it is my organizational defaults, my regional defaults. And you'll see here, this region default setting is a setting that basically defines some of the default language, default unit type, and default curated content that your organization will have. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that this is set so that I'm getting that by default I'm getting the Canadian content that I'd like to see. So I'm just going to select Canada here, and that should change some of my underlying settings like units and my base map gallery. Now, there is one other setting I need to check before I'm certain I will see those base maps in my list. Because these base maps are vector tile base maps, I need to click on the map setting here and make sure that my base map gallery is also configured to support Esri vector base maps. And if it's not checked off, I won't see them. So I'm just going to check this off, and I'm going to go back to my map. And if I look at my map properties, if I look at my base map and I look at my list here, I am now going to see the Community Map of Canada base maps in my list. So now they're ready for me to use and select and click on and work with.
So, John, for someone who's not a cartographer, but someone who likes to create online maps and applications, what are some of the guidelines to choosing one map over the other? Why would I choose a topo over a streets, let's say?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. And while preference is involved in the decision, you need to know what message the overall map is trying to convey. Now, should the emphasis be on the thematic map, or is the base map the primary map? So from my perspective, the topographic map is really meant to support the thematic data you place over top. So the purpose is to supply context without overwhelming the map's thematic layers. So while I really want my operational data and my thematic data to stand out, I do want some contextual data around it, maybe to give me a frame of reference or to support my analysis. But again, the focus is on my thematic data. Now, the street style is the exact opposite. It really exists to highlight the streets and point of interest. If the data I add to this doesn't fit within this roadmap theme or style, it may clash, or it might completely disappear within the overall map. So I use this theme to display information like a generated route or retail outlets I need to navigate to. And of course, I switch between the streets and the street night themes, depending on whether or not my application has a dark mode or a light mode. And then of course I use the supporting map to support that mode. Now, like the topographic, the light and gray styles act as a backdrop for the more important thematic data. So I'll choose a gray base map when I want my data to really stand out, and it has little or no dependency on the surrounding geography. So again, I may have a little bit, but it's fine if it just falls into the background. Unlike the topographic, I still want my thematic data to stand out, but I also want people to see that additional information to help support the data that I'm trying to display. Now, I also want to mention that these base map styles are registered in ArcGIS Online using a unique item ID. And I don't expect anyone to memorize these identifiers. However, if you plan to use these web maps in a Python script or JavaScript application, you'll need to reference them using this ID. So you see them here. You could use this as a reference, but I'll walk you through an example a little bit later.
So, John, now that we've known how to add them to our gallery and, the different styles, what if a user is looking to make them as their default, and then take that default one step further and customize it, or create a different style? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to break that up into two parts here. We'll start first by setting up a default base map for my map environment. And then we'll move into looking at the style editor and creating a style. And I think you'll find that's a really fun tool to use to build your own styles. So the first thing I need to do is I need to create my own group to support a base map gallery. And this is actually a great way. And I encourage most people to do this anyways, because this gives you control over what that content is within this base map gallery here. So what I want to start by doing is creating a brand new group that will contain all of the base maps that I want for my users of my organization. And it's a very simple process. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a group, and I'm going to give it a name. and a little bit of a little bit of metadata information as well. But what's key here is I need to define, okay, this is going to be a group that contains all of the base maps that I want my users in my organization to see. So the only people who need to see this group are the members of my organization. And I want everybody to be able to see it, and if they can't, they can just add themselves. I only want my organization to see this group. And again, it's important to remember that the content within this group will still be shared with whomever, with everyone. So if I'm using base, not everyone, the contents of this group will still be, if I'm using base maps that are like the Community Map of Canada, those are still going to be shared with everyone. And they will still be accessible to everyone. This is really just about setting up that base map list. Of course, I want this content curated by my GIS administrators and managed by them. So only want my group owners and group managers to be able to add content to this. This might be different in your own organization, but for me, this is a curated list that is managed by my GIS staff. So I'm going to click Save. And so now I have this group. It's empty. There's nothing in it yet, but we're going to fix that very, very shortly. I'm going to select Organization and select Settings, because I'm going to go into my map settings again, but this time I am going to change the group that supports my base map gallery. So right now my base map gallery is just using the default one that is built by that's provided by ArcGIS Online. So I'm just going to select Esri default and select that new base map gallery group I just created. And right now it's still empty, but what I want to do is, not only do I want to be able to add new base maps to this group and also define my default base map, I want to make sure that all the existing base maps that are already available to you out of the box are also included in this group. So I'm just going to click Share Vector Base Maps. And then we're going to go back to that group. Let's take a quick look at that group. And now what you're going to see is all of the base maps for all of the existing base maps that are available by default are now included in this group. I can also go into this group and add brand new base maps, including the ones that I'm going to style in a few moments. So the last thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the next time I launch my map, it's going to default to a Community Map of Canada. So to do that, I'm going to select Organization and go back to my settings one last time. I'm going to go back to my map settings. And then down here, there's a drop down here that has now been populated based on the content of that group. So it's no longer pointing to just the default settings. It's actually populated based on the contents of that group. And I can select any one of these to be my default base map. Now, what's important to note is the bilingual base maps, those are the Community Map of Canada. So you will see the French and English name for them. So I'm going to just set it to the Streets Night. And just to make sure that worked, I'm going to open up a brand new map. And sure enough, now my base map, my default base map for my organization is that Streets Night that I selected. And of course, I could select any one of them. But now, at least I know when I'm working on a map within for my content within Canada, that the base map is going to come from the Community Map of Canada. Now, there was another part to your question there, Alia, that I'm going to step into, which is, like, how do I customize the style so that I can create my own base map?
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we take a look at that? There's a few steps I need to do before I get started, but we're going to jump into a tool called the ArcGIS Vector Tile Style Editor in a second. But before we do that, I need to make a copy of the base map style that I want to customize. And in order to do that, I need to use our older Map Viewer Classic. Right now, the newer Map Viewer, doesn't have that capability yet to copy a base map style to a layer within my organization. So I still have to use this tool to do that, but that's okay. It's still there available to you. And what I need to do is just create a very simple map that uses the base map that I want to customize. And earlier, I showed you just very quickly in that Style of the Month gallery, the April 2021 style. And what I want to do is I want to kind of show you some of the steps that went into creating that style. But that style started from this topographic map. And right now, what I want to do is I need to make a copy of just the style that I'm going to modify. And the only part of this entire base map that I need to modify is the Canadian topographic style here. So what I need to do is I need to move it out of the base map area. So now it's a layer within my map. And then the next thing I need to do is just copy it. So once I copy it and then save that copy, I now have my own copy sitting within my organization that I can modify and make changes to. So the next thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to save it as a layer, and I'm going to give it a name and create that item. So now this item is going to be listed within my content. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I need to make a copy of this so that I can edit it and make my changes to it to create my custom style. So I've now made a copy of it. The next step, it's sitting in my organization, ready for me to edit. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to open up our vector tile style editor. This is a free tool available on developers.arcgis.com that you can use to style your own style, to modify or create your own styles. And I'm just going to select Get Started. What's interesting here is we have a whole bunch of templates that you can start from. But for me, I want to start from one of the Community Map of Canada styles. So I'm going to take that style that I copied and just created a few moments ago. So I'm going to select that style and then click and then open up the viewer. Now I know, so right now I'm, whether you can see the layers or not, what I want to do is I'm going to make some changes to this to make that base map a little brighter. I'm going to make it a brighter yellow. I'm going to make it so that the water doesn't look as washed out right now because I want it to stand out with the land-based layer. So this tool, what you see on the left-hand side here, is a list of all the layers that are within this style. And these are the ones that I can come in and edit and modify. And then the toolbar even further on the left here contains a few tools that give me the ability to do that. And I'm going to walk you through each one, a simple example of each one of these as we go. Now, the first thing I want to do is change that land base so that it's a yellow. To do that, I'm going to go into the topographic layers. Now, again, this is like you would be working with it with the same layers if you were customizing the topographic, the Community Map of Canada topographic style as well. And I'm going to go into the land base and select my topo layers and this topmost layer. This is all of the land base you see at the current scale. Now, right now, it's not actually displaying for this scale. So I want to change it so that I see it for every scale. Now, you can't quite see it yet because it's still just a clear color. What I want to do is change this color so that it is something a little brighter. No, I'm going to change it to something just a little bit brighter. Let's try that. So there's the yellow, and it looks a little bit brighter, but I also need to change the water so that both of the two pieces stand out a bit. So there's a couple of ways I can figure that out. So if you look at the water, it's made up of a couple of layers because that's how it creates these different styles or this. So what I need to do is figure out, okay, which layers do I need to modify? And I can click on any one of these layers. And what it's going to do on the left here is select that specific layer that I've clicked on. And what I can tell is that all the water is tied to the bathymetry style or the bathymetry layer. So I'm just going to select that layer at a high level, and I'm going to see all the separate individual layers that go into it. And what's nice here is I can do a bulk edit and change the color of all of them in one shot. So this is a very easy way for me to modify a whole bunch of layers in one shot so that I'm not clicking and picking each individual layer to change. Now, the other thing is there's still some inland water bodies here that I want to change to have the same color. So I'm going to just click on one of these here so that we can see its layer. So what's important here is I can see the layer again on the left, but I'm not sure how many layers are tied to the inland water body. So, but I can tell that they're all the same color. So what I want to do is I want to take a note of the color value that defines that particular layer, that particular style, and I'm going to use my Edit by Color tool. And what's nice here is I can find the specific color that I need to modify, and it's going to select all the layers that are using that color. And in this case, it really was only the one, but what's nice here is I could select others and it might give me even more layers, right? So for me, what I'm going to do is go back to that one layer. Again, I can change its color and click apply, and now I'm getting more of what I'm looking for at this level. Now I'm not done yet. I'm going to do one more change, and I'm not going to walk you through everything because there are quite a few changes and quite a few things we want to cover today. But what I do want to do is make one more change. You see this little circle here defining my capital cities. I'm going to change that to something a little more spring-like. I'm kind of in a Bob Ross mood right now, and I want to use, well, I might not use a happy little tree. I think I'm going to use a happy little orchid to sort of describe that icon. And I can do that by coming into our icons and patterns editor. And of course, if I do want to channel Bob Ross here, I do have my happy little tree, but I'm going to add an orchid because I really like the look of an icon that I've got. And these are the icons that are already in the style. I'm going to click add. And I'm going to select my icon file. And there it is. There, the orchid I'd like to use. So I'm going to select open. I'm going to give this a name. And I am going to add it to my palette. So that is now in my palette. So what's great about this is you can add your own icons and you can add and it's still derived from the same underlying cache. And that flexibility is just great because you can build all sorts of applications. So I'm going to select that label. And of course, you can see right here that it is defined by this icon. So I'm just going to open up this panel and select my orchid, and there we go. And I can go in here and I can change other things like the font, other symbols. So there really is a lot of flexibility in what you can do here and in building your own work. So I'm going to save and stop right there. And, you know, I think I'm happy with what I've got for now.
And I guess, John, this is a great segue to highlight that not all base maps are created equal, you know, and we should do a little bit of a comparison between the Esri, you know, as the community map of Canada and its Esri siblings, the Esri raster and the Esri vector. So there are two differentiators of the community map of Canada. The first is the availability of Canadian content, and the second thing is the frequency of the update. So let's take a look first at the availability of Canadian content. Canadian content on the Esri raster is no longer being updated, while Canadian content on the Esri vector is coming from here, which is a third-party provider, and you don't always know how accurate or how current that data is. Whereas the community map of Canada, it's coming from the authoritative sources, the communities that handle the day-to-day transactions and changes. In terms of frequency of, you know, the updates, Esri raster as a whole is entering maturity in July of this year, and the Esri vector base maps are updated every 3 weeks. And although this is a great frequency, but it's still not as good as the community map of Canada, which is updated twice a week. And again, any updates to the data or any changes are captured, you know, daily. John, I know that you prepared a little slider application for us to see the difference between the Esri vector and the community map of Canada, because seeing is believing, and we need to compare apples to apples to vector base maps. So could you show us that?
Sure, yeah. Let me just share my screen again. So we're just going to jump back to my screen in my browser here. And what we're looking at here is just a simple application that was built from just an ArcGIS Online template. What you're looking at on the left side is the Esri, the default Esri topographic style. On the right side, you're looking at the community map of Canada topographic style. But I think what's best to see the difference is we zoom in somewhere. So I don't know, give me an area you'd like me to zoom into, Alia.
Oh, we were talking to Lacombe recently, so let's look at them, Lacombe, Alberta.
Okay. So I'm going to zoom in here, and you can already see that there are some differences between the two, but it's still not entirely clear yet. Let's zoom in. on a specific area and then take a closer look. And sure enough, what you can see here clearly at even this scale, you can see things like parcels, like buildings. You can, even if I zoom in a little closer, you'll see the parcels. You see a lot more detail within the Community Map of Canada data. What's also interesting, if I zoom out and just drag this slider over here, you're also going to see things like trails. So a lot more detail, a lot more information here. And in fact, if we zoom over even a little further, we see that there are even some differences in some of the underlying geometry. And that's because this data is coming from those communities. So we are getting it on a regular basis, and it's being updated, as it becomes available. So again, this is why the Community Map of Canada base maps and their base map styles are a great way to highlight and showcase and build your maps on top of for Canadian content.
So to move, moving a little bit deeper or digging a little bit deeper, John, I hear people rave about the ArcGIS notebooks and how they facilitated, data analysis. Can a user use the Community Map of Canada in a notebook?
Oh, absolutely. And notebooks, like I'm a huge fan of notebooks, and I enjoy writing in Python. And what I've done here is I've created a little notebook to highlight exactly how I would add the Community Map of Canada base map to it. What's important to me is that when I think of notebooks, notebooks are a way for a data scientist to organize an analysis, automate it, document it, and provide an output so that people can review and assess the quality of that analysis. And what's important is that a lot of that work and a lot of the output ends up being visual. And when you're using a map, you really want to make sure that if your analysis needs to see not only the visual results, but the contextual data that supports that results, I want to make sure I'm using a base map that best emphasizes that. So, for example, an analysis that might support working with addressing or parcels or streets or any of those things, I want to make sure that the base map I put my results on top of are best complemented by that base map. So I haven't written an analysis here, but what I have is a very simple notebook application that displays a web map. And right now it's going to display a web map using a vector, just using the standard Esri gray vector. So I'm going to make a connection. So this very first line of code, if you haven't worked in Python before, or you haven't worked in notebooks before, I just want to describe that this first line of code simply says, hey, I want to connect to a GIS portal, and I want to connect to the current GIS portal that I'm running in. So in this case, that's what home is. It's the ArcGIS Online organization I'm running in. So the next little step here is I want to create a map and display it. And the map widget that is provided within the Python API does just that. And so what it does is it creates a brand new map object, zooms into the area that or centers on the location that I've said, and then zooms into that area, providing a base map. So what I want to do is I want to change this underlying base map to use the Community Map of Canada. And while I'm using the gray one here, what I want to do is change it so that I use one of the base maps provided with the Community Map of Canada. And it's very easy to do because all I need to do is reference that web map and set my base map using that web map. So to do that, I'm going to use something called a code snippet. And the notebook environment provides some simple tools to allow me to add code to this without writing it. It's a graphical tool that allows me to add it. And to do that, I'm going to use this add button right up here. And this allows me to search the content of my organization or of ArcGIS Online, and then inject that item as code within my notebook. So for me, because I created that group earlier that contained all the Community Map of Canada, I can just come in here and select anything from that group that I had created earlier in my demonstrations. But in case you don't have that group and you're still not seeing the Community Map of Canada within your organization, you can also find the Community Map of Canada from the Living Atlas. So I would just choose the Living Atlas as my option, and then I can do an owner search based on Esri CA. So owner : Esri CA, which is that's the owner of the Community Map of Canada's tiles. And then I have the list here again at the top, and I can just click the plus sign, and sure enough, it injected the code directly for me. So again, I don't need to remember that item ID like I was talking about earlier. It's right there for me. I'm going to run this code. The item is added. So the only one little thing I need to change is the base map that the base map that I used to, I mean, the item I used to define the base map. So no longer is it going to be one of those default styles. I'm going to use that web map. I'm going to run this code. And once it finishes, I'm going to see now the streets base map. I will see, the detail that I need to see for this particular area. But what's nice now is I can start building my analysis on top of this. So my results can start being displayed on top of this base map, and they can leverage the additional parcel data, the additional addressing data, and all of the other contextual data that goes into this in order to do my work.
John, so we're moving to the last, we're saving the best for last, and we're moving to the last how do I kind of thing. And I know this is your favorite part because it's going to be focusing on JavaScript and how the JavaScript API and how you'd include the Community Map of Canada in, applications development using the JavaScript API. So can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. So we've looked at a lot of different topics in this session, and what's important about that is that I want to highlight that there are so many areas that the base map is an important component in what you're doing, and choosing the right base maps and picking data that best supports either the application analysis you're doing is really important. In fact, a lot of applications I've built through the years have either been like how aesthetic they look, how well they're used was highly dependent on whether or not I chose the right base map under the covers, and it really does make a difference for your applications. So that's why I want to show you just a simple little JavaScript app that would use the Community Map of Canada as its base map and create a base map gallery that includes those base maps. Sorry, I lost my headset for a second there. I'm getting too excited with my hands. So what I want to show you here is a tool called CodePen. And CodePen is sort of the way I prototype applications before I really get into building them a little more, thoroughly. And typically an HTML, a web-based application is comprised of three components. My HTML, which kind of defines the components that are within the containers within the map. So the HTML defines the containers. The CSS defines the positioning and the style of those containers. And then, of course, the JavaScript is what makes the application work and do its dynamic work. So I just want to just very quickly take a look at these different pieces. And for you JavaScript developers out there, I know you've probably played around with this stuff before, but let's take a closer look at what we've got here. The first piece in this HTML is that I need to reference a style sheet that defines the ArcGIS JavaScript API's widget styling. And we have several different themes. In this case, I'm using the dark theme, and you'll see when the buttons show up that they look a little darker, but there's a whole bunch of different themes that are out there. We also need to reference the JavaScript library as well. The next step is that I need to set up the style for where the map is going to be positioned. And I did forget to mention that right here, this code here is going to defines the container that's going to contain my map. And what I've done is I've said this container, I want it to take up the whole page. I want this entire application to be the page. And it's common now to see single page apps that the map takes up the whole page, which is all the more reason why the look of the base map is so important, because much of what people see is the base map. And then the last here is the code that makes this work. And I really want to step through this a little bit for you for the next few minutes. What's key here is that I'm going to use 4 objects, and I'm going to walk you through each of them as we go. The first object that's the most important here is the map itself. Now, this map object, which is a part of our JavaScript API, doesn't display the map. It doesn't do the UI for the map. What it does is define the properties of the map. What does that mean? It means it defines what the base map is. It defines the layers that go into that map, but it doesn't do the hard work of drawing it or changing the zoom level or navigating through it. To do that, I need an object called the map view. And the map view does the heavy lifting of rendering that map on the page and kind of tying it into my browser experience. So I'm just going to uncomment this code. And in a second, we should see the base map appear. So again, you see this is default for the map view to have this zoom in, zoom out. I see right now that I have a web map that's zoomed into Ajax, Ontario, and it's using the gray vector base map style, which is fine. What I want to do is change this underlying map to use a community map of Canada style. And to make that work, I need to use another object that's similar to the map object. It's called the base map object. And what it does is it just defines the underlying ArcGIS Online, or it could also be an ArcGIS Enterprise item that references the base map I want to display. And this is, again, where I need that item ID, because I need that item ID to query and pull that unique item from, again, either ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. So what I'm doing here is all with ArcGIS Enterprise at the moment. ArcGIS Online, I'm sorry, with ArcGIS Online at the moment. So this is coming from ArcGIS Online. So I'm just going to remove this comment again. Now, this isn't going to do anything yet, because all I've done is just loaded the object into memory. I need to simply change the base map object of my map, and the code will run again. And when it does, when it refreshes, you will see now that I am using a different base map, the Community Map of Canada base map. Now the rest of my application can build on top of this with its layers and so forth. Now, I really want to give my users the ability to select base maps that they want to choose from. And so in order to do that, I need to use the last object in my list here, which is called a base map gallery. And I've got some code right down here that creates a brand new base map gallery object and positions it on the page. So the base map gallery is similar to a map view in that it contains user interface components that are going to be drawn on the page, and I want it contained within my map view. So we're going to clear this code, and we're going to clear this comment here. And what you should see is in the top left corner, top right corner, is a base map gallery. Now, right now, this is the default base map gallery. And the content in here is curated for the location of the browser accessing the application. So if this application is in Australia, it's going to get the curated list of base maps for Australia. If it's located in Canada, it will get a curated list of Canadian base maps. And in fact, I do have the Community Map of Canada base maps in here, but that's mainly because I am running this code from a browser that is currently located within Canada. And of course, if you are located in Canada but running, on a VM that's sitting in the US, you may or may not see that list. And so what I want to do is make sure that whenever anybody accesses this application from anywhere in the world, because my application's focused on Canadian content, I want to make sure that they always get the Community Map of Canada in their base map list. So to do that, I need to create a couple more base map objects this time. I'm going to create one for each of the 5 styles we support. Now, I already created the topo one, but now I need to create 4 more to support our streets type, our street nights type, our streets night type, our light gray and our dark gray. Now, I haven't changed the base map gallery yet because I've now packaged these 5 base map objects into a JavaScript array, a list that I'm going to apply to my base map gallery. So I can tell the base map gallery only put base maps from this list in. So it's a very easy change. Just going to come in here. And once the code refreshes, I should have just a base map gallery with only the community map of Canada. So why is this important? Because when you want to build an application that is highlighting Canadian content, regardless of anywhere, and regardless of who is accessing this application from a browser located anywhere in the world, that they are still being given the correct base maps to support the content that you're trying to provide or display. So, I mean, that's what I have to show here, Alia.
Yeah, and
oh, that's okay.
yeah, we've got that. So John and I encourage you to give your maps and application a solid foundation with this versatile tools. You know, John and I are here to assist at any time. Our contacts are available, whether by email or we can both be found on LinkedIn as well. John, thank you very much for joining me, and I thank everybody in the audience for being here today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. And I just want to share with everybody that that the Community Map of Canada team is a wonderful team. I've been working with them over the last few years. I've worked with a number of teams within this company over the last 20 years. And what I can say is that there's a really solid understanding of content, your content, because this is really community-driven content, your community content, and an understanding of how to make good, strong base maps. So there really is. It's a great it would be a great opportunity it's a great opportunity to work with them. But yeah.
Thanks, John. I think we have a few minutes for questions, and we do have some in the Q&A, so
sure,
we can.
the
first. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, okay, I'll go ahead with the first one here. Now,
sure.
Is this for ArcGIS only, or does it work in ArcGIS Pro? So, it does work in ArcGIS Pro. These base maps are for both. What happens here is ArcGIS Pro will use the base map gallery of the organization you might connect to, or will use the default base map gallery for the location you are connected from, just in the same way my app did. So yes, these base maps are for ArcGIS Pro. They're for ArcGIS Online, and in fact, you can also use them in ArcGIS Enterprise as well. Do you review and edit these map settings in ArcMap Desktop as well? So most of these, and Ali, maybe I might have to, most of these base maps, the vector tile styles that are built here, they are built in Pro. ArcMap doesn't support vector tile styles yet. So I believe ArcMap can still use some of the raster-based stuff that are out there. But again, as Ali has said, they're not going to be updated as frequently or past July 2021, I think it was you said. So it is important if you can to move to Pro, because Pro is built to leverage vector tile layers.
So we have a question from Leduc, Alberta, that the information is outdated. There's a couple of things that you can do to update your data if you're not a contributor or you need certain things seen. We do on that Exchange site that John showed at the very beginning, or exchange.maps.arcgis.com. At the very bottom of that page, there is a feedback tool that you can kind of give us information or give us your feedback on certain aspects of the map if they're incorrect or if you're seeing discrepancies. So that would be the best option. If you are a contributor and looking to update your information, again, feel free to get in touch with me, and I'm happy to get that done for you.
I have two questions here that, while I can't answer right away, I'm going to mention them. What I'm going to do after this, and Ali might help me out a little bit, but we're going to take some of these questions and I'm going to answer them in a blog. This is something I commonly do. So if there are any questions here I can't answer, I will follow up with something that we can release and make available to everybody. So the two questions I'm talking about right now is, like, you're noticing the vector base maps make your laptop work pretty hard to render it. Are there best practices using vector base maps to consider getting the best performance? There are some dependencies in Pro and on graphic capabilities. I don't have, there is some stuff online about it. So I'm going to dig that up for you, and I'll make sure that we get you those answers. The other is, can we use Arcade to configure labels for addresses in these styles? I believe you can. but I need to confirm that. So again, I will do the same for you. I apologize, I don't have the answer right now, but I will dig that up for you.
And
The
we've
next
got
one-
some
go ahead.
more questions about contributing or subscribing to the Community Map of Canada. Again, I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with you for that. So feel free to reach out to me, and as well, I'll have the question list, so I'll reach out to you as well.
The next here is, go ahead. I have,
Yeah,
how
go ahead.
recent is the ortho imagery and how often is it updated? So I believe, Alia, the ortho imagery is provided by, that's ArcGIS, that's prepared by, like we don't
Esri.
prepare the, Esri Inc.
No, yeah,
No.
you're right, John. We take that information, we take all our contributors' data, and that is sent to Esri Inc., and that's published as part of the whole world imagery. There is, I believe Esri's includes the dates as to when the imagery was taken, so you'd be able to see how often or when the contributor has provided their imagery. I think there's one more question. Would that work in standard portal viewer? John, do you know the answer to that one?
Would you, we do have some steps, if there's not already an article on it, that you can add, you can add base maps to ArcGIS. So you can add the ArcGIS, the Community Map of Canada base maps to ArcGIS Enterprise. It's really simply a matter of manually adding those items to your enterprise. So it's really just, you're going to reference those items within ArcGIS Enterprise. I'll see if we can dig up that article, and if we don't have one right now, then I think that's a good article that we need to prepare, Alia. So we'll dig that up. But there is steps that allow you to use this in the portal map viewer, and in fact add them to your base map gallery in the portal map viewer, because in fact we do that ourselves within our own internal Esri Canada portal. So we can definitely get you those steps. And of course, if you don't see that blog, and it's like, just follow up with me, and I'll make sure to send you the links once we get it out there, or even follow up with me after at that email there, and I can send you the exact steps to setting up ArcGIS Enterprise with those base maps.
And I think that is pretty much it. John, any other questions that we haven't answered now will be answered individually after the webinar. Again, this webinar is being recorded, so everything, all your questions, we will get to them, and we appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Yeah,
thanks, John,
thank you.
again.
Yeah, no
Take
problem.
care.
So yeah, we'll get that blog out. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.